Hello, everyone. Madeline from the Dribbble team here. How's everyone doing? It's so great to see so many of you folks from all around the world. I'd love to hear where you're joining from. I know some of you have already put that on the chat, but we've got some folks from Portland, Vancouver, BC. That's where I am as well. West coast of Canada, UK, amazing Seattle, Germany. We've got a real international bunch. So thank you so much if you're staying up late to watch this. I know some folks join at like crazy times, 1 a.m. So that's awesome to see. We'll use the chat throughout this whole workshop to get to know each other. Link your portfolios in the chat, say hi. We love to keep these events super interactive, and we've got a really fun one lined up for you today. We're so excited that you guys are here with us today for our workshop with Ed2Rex and Michael Janda on the ultimate workflow of creating client sites. We couldn't have booked a better person to teach us the ins and outs of creating these client sites than renowned agency founder and designer Michael Janda. We're going to get started in just a second, but I've got some housekeeping bits and bobs for you first. I'll get the boring stuff over quickly. So like I said, use the chat to get to know each other. We love to see where you're from. We love to see if this is your first Dribbble event. So keep it interactive. Use the Q&A section in the top right to ask your questions. So if you do have a question for Michael, he's going to be answering them throughout the workshop, and just pop your questions in there. If you see a question that you like, upvote it. The more votes a question has, it will rise to the top of the question pile, and the more likely it will to get answered. The session is going to be super interactive, lots of valuable information. So there will be an opportunity for you guys to come up onto stage with your microphone on, with your camera on, and speak to Michael face to face if you want to ask him some questions. So if you want to do that, then when the time comes, just raise your hand in the question and answer portion of the chat. Once you raise your hand, that signifies that you want to come up onto stage, you want to be seen, you want to ask a question directly to Michael. If you run into any tech problems or any issues at all, just flag me in the chat or use the help tab. And I'm here throughout the whole event, so we can support you throughout any of your tech issues. If you're sharing this on social media, then be sure to tag Dribbble, tag Ed2Rex, and tag Michael at @morejanda. Ed2Rex is at Ed2Rex, and we're at Dribbble. We love to see how you guys are watching this, and we'll be resharing everything that you post. So the workshop's being recorded as well. So if you want to take a quick break, if you want to stretch your legs, if you want to get some water, of course, do that. It's going to be live on Ed2Rex's site in the coming weeks. And you'll also get an email with the recording. So don't worry about missing certain chunks. And I'd love for you guys to take a minute now to download the really helpful resources that Michael's put together for this workshop. I've linked them in the chat just now, and Michael's going to be walking through the free downloadable resources and worksheets. So take a second to do that now, please. Okay, that's my boring stuff over. I'm sure that you guys are so incredibly excited. Even more excited than I am, I'd love to introduce Michael Janda, who's a successful agency founder, designer, and author of Burn Your Portfolio and the Psychology of Design Pricing. He has over 15 years of agency ownership, and he sold, executed, managed website projects ranging from the $5,000 to $500,000 mark for clients. And that client list includes Disney, Google, ABC, NBC, Fox, Netflix, Warner Brothers, and many more high-profile brands. So you guys are in really good hands here and in for an awesome workshop. So without further ado, I'd love to bring up onto stage for your workshop, Michael Janda.
Hey, everybody. Great to see you. And it's so fun for me to see everybody and where they're from in the chat. And I saw someone from Ukraine joining us. So thank you so much. My heart goes out to Ukraine right now, as I know the rest of the world feels the same. So thank you for joining. Thank you for sharing. And I saw people from places I've lived in the past, and like Chicago. I was born in Chicago and lived in Arizona, lived in LA, and we always in these kinds of events have a lot of people who come in from LA. Jesse Flood from Philly. Philly's one of my favorite cities. I love it. I have some great friends that live near Philly. Okay, thank you for joining me. I also saw in here some people, some of my friends from Instagram on here. Melina, I just see you right there. And I think Gunny's gave me a DM that I haven't read yet. Anyway, good to see everybody. And my goal here for this workshop is to drop some value to you. I want this to be valuable time that after we're done here, you say to yourself, oh my gosh, it was worth staying up for that. I feel so much clearer about how I'm going to produce websites for my clients. I just want this to be a valuable takeaway for you. And Madeline put on the chat the link to download some of the resources that we're going to be going through in this presentation. And I know that those will be something that you can use throughout your creative business. In fact, speaking of creative businesses, let's just throw up a poll just to get started. What kind of business do you have? What type of creative business do you have right now? Are you planning to start freelancing? Are you a solo freelancer right now? Are you a freelancer with some contract help, or are you an agency? So you can drop that one in there. Madeline is going to throw it up. There it is on the screen. So take a second to chime in on that poll. I always love seeing who we're talking to, and I'm sure it's valuable to you to see the people that are inside of this presentation. And like Madeline said, I think these things are a great opportunity for you to start connecting with other people. So if somebody makes a great question, tell them, hey, I really loved your question. Use that as an opportunity to connect with someone. These types of things are great to find people that you can start working with on projects, people with tangential skills, like you're a designer and they're a developer, and you can connect in something like this and start a working relationship. So take advantage of that. In this post-pandemic world that we're in, you got to take advantage of opportunities like this to connect with other people in the industry who might be able to provide opportunities for you, and you provide opportunities for them. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now, and we will dig into this presentation that I have for you. Sharing right now. So just everybody can see it okay. Madeline gave me the thumbs up, and we are ready to rock on this. Okay, the ultimate workflow for creating client sites. And I'm just gonna, because Madeline gave me an intro already, I'll slide whip you through my introduction slides here. Back in 2000, I was a creative director at Fox Studios. I managed the digital divisions for Fox Kids and Fox Family, orchestrated some major style guides for them and some major redesigns of both of those properties, and then managed the ad sales fulfillment and all the show sites and things for those two properties. In 2002, I founded the creative agency Riser. This is a shot of our lobby sign. And as you can see, I have a bobblehead collection that is now behind me, but it used to be in my studio space. This is a shot of our studio space back, I think this was shot probably in 2012 or so. And a shot of our team. For our Christmas party one year, I had my whole team made into custom bobbleheads and surprised them with that for our Christmas party, and it was a huge success. And then we did that for all new employees after their 90-day temporary term to prove themselves. Once they became a full-time employee, we had a custom bobblehead made of them. So that was always a super fun thing. I've had the privilege of doing work for tons of awesome clients. Disney was our biggest client over my 13-year run. We did work for Netflix and FX Networks and Warner Brothers and properties like Friends, shows like Smallville, and did lots of work for Google, TV Guide, Tropicana and Pepsi and Kraft. This was one of the biggest sites that we created. This was a huge multi-six-figure website that we did for Kraft Foods. And in 2015, I sold my agency to a friendly competitor, and we became the agency EKR. This is a shot of our team. EKR, my Riser agency, is the R of EKR. And after I sold my agency, I left after the buyout completed about 2 years later, and I pursued what I do now. What I love to do the most is mentor and train, teach creative entrepreneurs to run a successful creative business. I share a ton of free content on Instagram and YouTube, and you can follow me on either of those channels at More Janda. Okay, let's dig into this presentation material. Now, if you didn't download the materials, you can snag those right now. And we're going to go over these and talk about how you use these to create the ultimate website project flow or the ultimate website client experience for your creative business. And this presentation is brought to you by EditorX. We wouldn't be here without EditorX. And if you haven't used or tried EditorX, I highly recommend that you do. It's an advanced platform for creating websites without knowing code. Super, super powerful and super valuable. If this existed when I was running my agency, I have no doubt that I would have used this as one of the platforms that we used to create client sites. And you can try it without paying anything. You can sign up for an account and start playing with the tools and creating websites. You only have to pay when you want custom domains, custom server space for those websites. So get in there and try it out. There's no cost to you to give it a shot. And I honestly, I started playing with this about end of last summer and have just been so impressed with the power of this tool. We'll talk more about it during this presentation. Here's the outline of what we're going to go through here. The ultimate workflow for creating client sites. We're going to start with section 1, the chaos of website projects. Number 2, how to scope a website. Number 3, we're going to talk about phase-based production. Number 4, managing clients through the process. Then there's going to be a little opportunity for you to share. I have a student task or a workshop-y task, and we'll have an opportunity to share those things and get some feedback. And then we're going to do Q&A. And I was so impressed because even before we started this presentation, we had over 400 questions that EditorX sent me in a spreadsheet from people. We hadn't even started the workshop yet. So I know that the Q&A is going to be valuable. A lot of the questions that you asked in the Q&A will be addressed in the flow of the presentation. Okay, let's start with this first section, the chaos of website projects. And if that word chaos resonates with you when it comes to websites, throw a little message in the chat for everybody to see. Yes, websites have been chaotic for me. If that resonates, throw it in the chat so everybody can see that this is something that typically is synonymous with website projects. They can become so chaotic. And the reason they become chaotic is because when we first sit back and we think, what does it take to build a client website? And the initial thinking is, okay, well, we got to design it and then we got to program it. Those two things. And that's what a lot of your clients think too. They think, okay, well, it's easy. Just design it and program it. That's how you build a website. But when we extrapolate those out, we can start seeing that programming, well, that has back end and front end development, two different mindsets. And then design, well, we have UX design or the wireframe structure, the usability structure. And then we have UI design. That's the visual piece that we layer on top of it. So we have two subsets of design. And then we extrapolate that out and we start thinking, well, we've also got project management. We got information architecture. We've got strategy. Like, what do they even want to build here? And how are we going to execute on those goals? And then we extrapolate that out farther and we have things like inside of information architecture, second quadrant on the right, we've got to site map it. We've got to plan the content. We've got to identify the features. We've got content modules that we need to identify. We've got to create the copy. On website strategy, the top right, we have to do some research. We have client goals, competitors, audience ID. Who are we even targeting? What's the messaging that's going to reach them? We extrapolate this out and we have all these different nodes that it takes to build a website. And this isn't even everything because each of these things could be extrapolated out even further. And this is why we have this in typical website projects. We have frustrated clients and unprofitable you got so many different nodes you're trying to juggle that it becomes unprofitable for you. You didn't consider enough of these tangential things in the process of scoping and creating this website. If this image right here resonates with you when it comes to websites, drop something in the chat. Or if you've ever had a website that was unprofitable because it became such a chaotic mess, drop that in the chat. And of website projects in the history of my agency, and we build millions of dollars, the biggest money losers for me were website projects. The ones that were unprofitable were website projects, but the biggest money winners were also website projects. When it went right, I made more money on website projects than I did on any other service that we offered. When we scoped it right, we contracted it right, and we managed the flow of it right, I made more money on this service than anything else. But when I did it wrong, or we didn't follow the scope, or things got a little crazy, I lost money. My goal for you today is we're going to take this chaos that we have here and we're going to turn it into a streamlined, systematic process that gets you to the end goal of a happy client and a profitable you. And I've been doing websites since the beginning of website time. I graduated from uni in 1996. And that was when people started making websites. I think my first website that I ever built was in my last semester, my senior year of college. We had a little intro to HTML module in my senior graphic design class. And I built my first website, and I've been doing it ever since and growing with all the technology changes over time. And I've done everything wrong that you can do. And I've fixed all those wrong things in my systematic process that I'm going to give you here today. All right, I'm going to change my window a little so I can see the chat here in case any questions come on. Reels turning. I needed this workshop desperately. Working on my full stack certification is still impactful to streamline my process. We're going to give you streamlined process and clear direction on how to execute on websites in this presentation. Madeline, let's throw up, as we transition into the core here, let's throw up another poll. How do you build websites right now? We've got a few different options on how do you build websites right now. I'll let her drop that in. Option number 1, custom code. Option number 2, no code builder like Editor X, a template builder, or customizing themes. Those are some of the options. How do you go about building websites for your clients as of right now? That poll is live. Good. We got a lot of no-code builders on here. That's awesome. And we'll just let some numbers trickle in, and then we'll get back going on the presentation. Okay, let's jump back to the presentation. How do you scope a website? And if you downloaded the PDFs, you'll see this, this tool that I'm going to give you about scoping website. A couple tools in this process. So here we go on this. What are we going to build for this client? That's the first question that pops in your head when you meet with a new client. You've got this discovery meeting with them. What are we even going to build here? What are we going to build for these people? Now we go to a simple, you learned this in 3rd grade. Good questions yield good answers. The appendage to that is good answers will yield a good scope. Good answers will yield a good scope. So we have to ask the right questions. And one of the downloadable tools that I gave you in the download package is this website discovery meeting questionnaire. And I'm going to go through this with you, and we're going to talk about how you use this tool to extract scope from your clients. It isn't just Hayden Miller, just one PDF. There are 3 PDFs in the thing. Madeline, will you drop the link for the download package again? Alan de Costa Gomez missed that. There it is. Back in the chat for everybody. You can see it in there. Okay, we're going to use this website discovery meeting as a guide to start extracting the scope from our clients. And just a reminder to any of you that join late, this is going to be recorded and you can scrub back through this information afterwards. And I would encourage you, if we get to a slide and you're like, oh my gosh, he went through that too fast, screenshot the slide while I have it up, just to jog your memory. That's the easiest way to kind of take notes in something like this. Okay, these are the questions that are inside that website discovery meeting PDF. It's a series of conversation starters that are going to help you scope the website. Now, a couple of things that you need to do before. Number one, do research before the meeting and answer as much as possible. So you get a new client, a new lead comes in, and it's a yoga studio that wants to have a new website built. Well, go to their current site and do some research. Find out where they're located. Do some research. Find other yoga studios nearby where they are. Do a little research on them so you know some of the competitors that they might have. You want to do some research before you jump in with these clients because it positions you so much better. Sybil Lang, I do yoga studios only. Funny. So you want to do that research before you get into the meeting so that you can come into that meeting educated from your research before. Number two, do not ask any questions you might have answered in your research, but you can confirm things. So you might say, hey, we saw that you're in Chicago, Illinois. You're located in Chicago, Illinois. In fact, in northern Chicago, Illinois, in Arlington Heights. Is that your only location? I saw that was the location that we found on the internet. So you can ask things like that to confirm things that you already learned and know from your research. Confirm them, don't ask them, hey, so tell me about where are you located? You already know the answer to that. You want to bring some morsels of being educated pre the meeting. And then number three, be genuinely interested and take notes during the meeting. This is a pet peeve, this Mike Janda pet peeve. I always have something to write with, always, in every single meeting. And it accomplishes 2 things. Number one, don't trust your memory to remember stuff. And number 2, it makes you look actually interested. And acting interested will make you actually be interested. So bring something to write with in a meeting. It is advantageous to you in so many ways in your business. Okay, moving on. Now here we're at the start of this discovery conversation. You don't have to ask these questions in order. It's not a survey where you're just going and asking this question, then asking that question. You want to go through and try and make it as conversational as you can. So you can start by asking questions. We need to understand when we're scoping a website, we need to understand the very first thing, and that's the business objectives, some of the strategic reasons that they want to do this. So question number 1, what business problem are you trying to solve with this website? Ask the client, why do you want to build a new website? Tell me about that. What led you to me to want to build this new website? That's an important thing to ask. And it helps you realize, and sometimes you'll find that the client doesn't even really need a new website, that they might need to back up and start with a brand strategy and redesign their identity. They've just self-diagnosed that they need a website. So you want to understand their reasoning behind that so that you can prescribe the right solution for them. Now, let's just assume that the proper solution for them is a website, a new website. So that's what we're going to do. And you agree with them. They need one. Then you go and you start talking about their target users. Well, tell me about the people who come to your website. What are they trying to accomplish? What do they want from the site? What do you want them to get from your website? Let's talk about those people. And who are they? What's the problem that they have that they want to seek you out to solve it for them? So you start talking about these target audience or these target users. Number 3, how will the website solve the problem for these people? And ask the client that. Say, okay, you want to build a website, you want to target these people to solve this problem. What do you currently envision for this solution? How do you expect this website to solve it for these target users? And then number 4, what results are you hoping to achieve? Like, what would make this a success? How would you measure that? If this website is a success for you, how are you going to look at it? An increase in traffic, an increase in leads, an increase in conversion, just your own self-esteem, all of those things. Now, when we go to this, I can't tell you, I mean, honestly, from 1996 until like 2005 or 6, I probably never asked any of these questions. I just heard, hey, my client wants to build a website. Cool. Here's my scope. Here you go. Here's my price. And then I'd start building it. But I didn't dig into these bigger business problems. And this is what unlocks bigger budgets for you. Those of you that are stuck in lower cost website land, where you can't figure out, how do I get my prices up? How do I start charging more for this? This is the kind of stuff that unlocks it for you. In fact, Madeline, let's throw up the poll right now. What is the average price you charge for a website? Since I mentioned price, let's throw that poll up right now and give her a second to throw that up. And this is good just for you to see where other people are charging for websites that they create for their clients. So that poll is live right now, and I'm going to watch some of these because I'm super curious as to where the price point is for a lot of the people that are watching this. So check out that poll. All right, 500 to 1999, 40% of you. In 2000 to $5,000, 33%. So a lot of people in some of those lower price tiers. We have a few in the 40 or 18% in the 5 to 10 grand, and then it starts trickling down. And kudos to a few of you that are in the 50,000 plus. Awesome. And maybe those 50,000 plus people can confirm that when we start focusing on these bigger things, these business objectives, that's the unlock for the bigger budgets. That's when people will say, yes, I will pay you more if you improve conversion, improve leads. Madeline, can you share? There you go. Now my screen's sharing again. Okay, awesome. Okay, so that's takeaway number 1. If you want to increase the budget that you're getting from clients, you've got to help them see that the thing you're building is solving a bigger problem for them. It's not just getting the website live so that they have somewhere online for their business. We want it to solve something and attach that to ROI whenever we can. Okay, now we transition that conversation. So we start that conversation with the client about the main objectives. Now we dig into some content and scope elements. You look at their existing website and you compare it to their objectives. This is great to do. Pull it up online and say, okay, well, you said you want to accomplish this, this, and this. Why do you think your current website is not accomplishing those things as well as you hope it to be? Ask them that question. You're trying to suck information out of them in this discovery meeting. Number 2, what problems exist with your current website? What do you think is wrong with it? Number 3, how many website pages will be required? Now we get into the nitty-gritty questions. How many pages? Your current site has 12 pages. Do you think that this new site will have 12 pages, 15 pages, 20 pages? What do you think that they'll be? What website features do you expect on the site? This one has burned me more times than anything else. This features. They want, a button that launches a rocket into space. And they didn't tell you that when you were scoping the website. And then they're like, well, I just thought it was assumed that we'd be able to launch a satellite from our website. That kind of extreme example, but sometimes it feels like that. And this is where I've been burned, where the client assumes that it is included and you assume that it is not. So we want to have a clearly crafted scope. I'm going to show you how to do that coming up here. Sasho said, and how do you define the design price? I don't know. We're not gonna go into pricing too much. Maybe we'll go into it in the QA. But I do have tons of pricing content out there for people. Okay, what technologies will be needed to integrate into the site? Do we need a content management system? Do we need some e-commerce engine? What are the technologies that we're going to need? And you may not ask your client that because they may be too naive on the technical side of things to know. And in that situation, you can ask something like a leading question that says, hey, are you built on a CMS right now? Are you built on a content management system? Where is your website built? Where is your website hosted? Where do you host these videos that are on your site right now? So you might ask some of those questions. The next one, if e-commerce is required, how many SKUs, how many product SKUs do you have? We'll talk more in detail about that here coming up. If a blog or news section is required, how many posts are in it? Man, this can burn you. Because we had a client, and fortunately it was NBC that we did this big blog migration, but they had thousands of blog posts in this one site, and we were migrating from one blog platform to another blog platform. And if we would have done that project, fortunately that one was based on not on a fixed bid, but if we would have done that project on a fixed bid, I almost guarantee I would have lost money, because of the amount of work that it was to suck all that stuff in and reformat it into the new tool. Even though our backend programmers built algorithms to do it, it was still a laborious task. So how many posts are there in a blog if you're trying to migrate them? Do you need us to set up hosting, or are we just going to use this existing server? All right, let's go to the next section. Competition and industry. Who are your biggest competitors? And as we jumped into this, I thought, you know what? These questions don't have to be in order. You don't have to go in order. Just let this become an organic conversation between you and your client. Who are your biggest competitors? We saw that there are 3 yoga studios that are within 20 miles of you. Are those your biggest competitors? Who do you compete with for your yoga students? Next one, what are the competitors' URLs? And you might do this as a confirmation. We looked up all your competitors and we have those 3 right here. Is this who you're watching from a competitor standpoint? And then these questions. What do you think is good about each of their websites? And what do you think isn't good about each of their websites? This helps you understand some of the psyche that your client has going into this website project. What do you think's good about that? And what do you think is not good about what your competitors are doing? Other considerations. And Magdalena, cool site and runs smoothly, no bugs. Oh, sorry, that's not for me. Oh, Shreya, could you give an example of the milestones? I'm going to give you example of milestones, phases, and tasks coming up here in this. Okay, other considerations. Who will create the website copy or the website content? Who's going to do that? You want us to get a writer? Are you a writer? Do you have a writer? Who is going to create the copy for this site? Who will maintain the site after launch? Websites are living organisms and they need to be maintained. There are so many technologies talking to each other. Who's going to maintain this after launch? Do you have someone technically savvy on your team that can maintain the site after launch? Next, are there any other unique requirements we should know about? When do you hope to launch this new website? Are there any other business initiatives tied to that launch? Like they're launching some new product. They're launching a new product and this site has to be live by August 3rd to coincide with the new product launch. You want to know those things up front. These are 2 great questions. Who is our best contact for additional technical questions? Don't just assume that the person you're talking with is the technically savvy person on their team, on your client's team. Ask for someone who is the right contact for technical questions, and who is our best contact for additional content questions. Content questions like, when are you going to send us the copy? Or can you send us your messaging document that you have right now? Who has that information for us? All right, now here are a few questions that are required for scoping the site, but you may not ask these questions, but you're going to need to know the answer to these questions so that you can create the project scope. So first one, what front-end development services and languages are necessary? Are we going to be using HTML, CSS, JavaScript? What do we need to do front-end wise? What back-end development services and languages are necessary? Is this PHP, Python? What are we building this thing on from a back-end platform? Now, Editor X gets rid of both of those questions. You can build the site without front-end or back-end code. And that's one of the great things about that platform. We're going to go a lot more into that coming up. What content management system will be used? Is this currently built on WordPress or some other tool? Or does the client have a requirement that we continue to use that tool? Or can we build this on a tool of our choice, like Editor X in the example for this presentation? And what are the accessibility and usability strategies for the site and any issues there? Accessibility, important. And I traditionally have not done as good a job of this as I should. And most of you probably are in the same boat. You know, descriptions of images and things so that it can be read for people with visual impairment, that kind of thing, or sizing issues for people with audio or visual impairment also, or the accessibility things. Those things need to be addressed. Okay, now we have that meeting with the client. We've sat back and we've talked to them about as much as we can extract from them. We understand their objectives. We understand generally what they want to build, and we've got to go in and fill in all the gaps. And I'm going to walk you through how we do that using this website scope workbook that I give you as one of the downloadables in that package. Madeline, maybe you could drop that into the chat one last time, the downloads package, just to make sure that people have a chance to grab that. All right, website scope workbook. Here's where we go and we turn the client discovery conversation into something tangible that we can scope into a contract. The first thing we start with, client objectives. List the client's primary, secondary, tertiary objectives for this website. What problem or problems is this client trying to solve for their business? So you might have things like this. Their primary objective, they want to improve brand perception. They tell you, man, their competitors' brands look better than ours. Our competitors' websites are better than ours. And so we want to redesign ours, make it really cool. That might be their primary objective. They might have a secondary objective that they want to increase lead conversion. And then when they say that, you say, okay, well, how are we going to get leads? Well, we can have a downloadable ebook. You talk to the client about ways to entice people to get onto their lead list. So we want to increase lead conversion. We want to generate more sales through our email funnel. That could be the tertiary objective. So I'm just giving you some examples of primary, secondary, and tertiary objectives that the client might have. And you take the conversation that was organic with the client and you try and turn it into some tangible objectives that you put into this document so that you can scope the website properly. Next thing that we're going to scope, website size and phases. Now, the size and phases, we're going to talk here in the upcoming section about phase-based production. And I'm going to give you clear descriptions of what happens in each of these phases and why I changed my whole agency to phase-based production and how you can do that for website projects. So we're going to do that coming up here. But for now, you want to do this in your scoping document and say, okay, how many phases of production do I need here? Well, I'm going to do strategy work for them. That'll be phase 1. I'm going to do UX design phase 2, phase 3 UI design. Then we're going to do beta development and alpha development and launch. Those will be our phases. And you'll see those phases. I'm going to walk you through each of those coming up here. You also want to tag this as a different size website. What is the size of this website? Is it large? Is it medium? Is it small? Or is it micro? Micro website might be like a single page or a super simple multi-page 2 or 3 page website. A small site, not too challenging, but has more pages than a micro site. I always call these small sites like a brochure website. There's 5 to 7 page websites you might build for a client. A medium website, it's a big website, but it's not overly complex. There's like not e-commerce and stuff. You're just building, it's just a lot of pages to manage. And then a large website, these are the big budget, lots of pages and some complex things to solve. So for you, when you're getting ready to scope this, just tag this as one of those sizes because it should influence how you price this project. Okay, hosting and platform, the next page of the PDF. What is the platform that we are going to build this on? Where will it be hosted? Is it an existing server? Is it a new server? And in this situation, I threw Editor X on there and the platform as Editor X, so hosting and platform, because with Editor X, you only need that one solution for both hosting and platform. And your custom domain can route into that. So you don't need to have a host server on GoDaddy and the platform you're going to build it on is WordPress. You don't have 2 tools like that talking to each other, the server and the platform. So Editor X has some benefits like that, but you in this document may have a different host for a different platform. The platform customization is the next thing. The next thing you're going to say is how much custom work is going to go into this. And you can see the options here. Standard theme, we're not going to customize it. We're just going to use it out of the box and put color on it. Minimal theme customization, we're going to do some minor adjustments to a standard theme. Heavy theme customization, we're going to make modifications to a standard theme and fully customize. The project will include a unique, fully customized website experience. Alejandro, are these slides going to be available afterwards? All of this stuff we're going through here is PDFs. And message me afterwards and I can send you or maybe if you're interested in that, message me. I can throw these onto a PDF that you can download. I'm sure we'll have a bunch of people that'll probably want that. Okay. Then we go into languages. So if you're going to do front end and back end programming, what languages are going to be used? And tools like Editor X don't require any programming. It's a no code platform, but you can use custom code to enhance anything that you want inside that platform. But if you're using another platform other than Editor X, then you have the front end and back end tools or languages that you're going to use, and list those out so that you know how you're going to fulfill those things for that client. Oh, I better get a Python developer, better find one because the client has a requirement that I use Python to build the back-end tools of this website. All right, next section, website sections and pages. Now this comes out of your conversation with the client, and this is where you get burned. If you don't identify all these things, you end up with scope creep. So define it based on sections of the site and what are the pages inside of that section. So you might have a section called products. And then inside of that product section, you have pages like backpacking, running, snow products, travel products. You might have a section that is about. Then you have page, mission, and team bios and culture. You might have a section that's classes, tours, and events, and you have upcoming events and locations, activities, FAQs. So you go and you break down what is this content going to be. And when you section it out into these pieces, you can start to see the real scope of this website. And you may have to go back to your client and ask some questions. You might go and say, hey, client, we were scoping the classes, tours, and events section, and we had these 5 pages that we identified that we'll need for that. Are there any others that you think that you need that we're not aware of? We forgot to ask that, or we didn't know to ask that in our discovery meeting. So feel free to reach back out to the client to answer any of these questions as you're scoping this project. It doesn't make you look dumb when you go and reach back out to the client. It actually makes you look interested and smart and detail oriented. So it's advantageous to the client. The client hangs up with you and says, man, they're really getting into the nitty gritty of this. This is so good. I'm so glad. So glad. I like these people. They're leaving no stone unturned, as they say. So don't hesitate to reach back out to the clients. Okay. Then at the bottom of this page, you can total out what are the number of sections and what are the number of pages. And we're going to put that into the contract, because once we know that there are 7 site sections and 36 pages, we're going to put it in our contract to protect us from scope creep. I'm going to give you several ways to protect from scope creep. In fact, there were a number of questions in the spreadsheet from you before this that were relating to scope creep. How do we stop the client from adding features and pages and things? I'm going to give you some techniques to help you control that. Okay, the next section of the PDF, features and technologies. This one has burned me too. Features and technologies. So the client says, hey, we want to do an event search. We want people to be able to search for events in their area. And you take that from the discovery meeting, and now you go here and you say, how are we going to build that? What are we going to build that on? Okay, well, let's just build that inside of our content management system and just allow search of that content in the CMS. Or the client says, hey, we want to have a past event video gallery. And you say, okay, how am I going to do a video gallery for them? Should we just upload all the videos to their server? Or should we put them on YouTube? Or should we put them on Vimeo? Where should we put these videos? And you put that on here. We're going to fulfill that using YouTube. And you want to identify what the solution is for each of these features, because you're going to put that in your contract too. Because then if the client says, hey, we didn't want to use YouTube for this video gallery, we wanted you to build a custom video gallery. And then you're like, a custom video gallery? What are you talking about? You don't want them to surprise you with some gigantic scope thing. One of the things I got burned on this was this next one, event locations. And it wasn't event locations. It was a website for a medical clinic. And they told us that they wanted an interactive map for their clinics. And so we were like, okay, cool. We'll just do that in Google Maps. And then it turned out when we go to build it, that their clinics to them meant any of the doctors that they had contracted with to fulfill their services anywhere in the nation. And it was like thousands of people that needed to be in this interactive map, this interactive Google map. So our developers went in and they had to custom code up a bunch of stuff on top of the Google Map API, and it became this super expensive $10,000 of production cost tool because I didn't identify clearly how we were going to build that feature. This kind of thing happens. And so identifying the features and the technologies that we're going to use is so critical. And I'm going to give you a couple of clauses that you can put in your contract that protect you from people from the changing scope of these feature sets that people ask for. Okay, next, and we'll breeze through a couple of these things. E-commerce. In fact, e-commerce, if you build e-commerce websites, drop that into the chat. I'm just curious to see how many people build e-commerce websites. This is usually a scary thing for a lot of web designers to go into the e-commerce thing, because now all of a sudden we have transactions happening. Transactions. And now I'm afraid because I'm taking money through the site I built, and the client makes money when my site works. And if my site goes down that I built for them, then the client's super mad at me because their site is down and it's their money generation thing. So there's some risks in that. So a lot of people chiming in that they do that on Shopify and things. Editor X has an e-commerce tool built into it as well. So there's just so many places and ways that you can build e-commerce easier today. Back in 1998, back in the old days, I had to hire developers to build custom e-commerce solutions because there weren't these canned solutions like you have today that make it much easier than it was. Okay, relating to e-commerce, you go in and you say, okay, e-commerce, what are the products and what are the numbers of SKUs? And you should ask this from your client. If you're going to build an e-commerce website for them, tell them, I want a list of all the products and the number of SKUs for each product. And the number of SKUs is the variations of that product. So you have backpacks. Well, you might have 27 different SKUs, one for each color and one for each color in each size. So you have 3 different backpack lines, and there are 9 variations of each of those 3 backpacks to give you 27 different SKUs. You want to make sure that you get numbers and get granular with your client when you're going to this SKU number. Don't just make assumptions based on what you see on their current website, because oftentimes you can't see the full database of products and number of SKUs that you're going to need to port into your e-commerce solution. Okay. Then we have blog and news articles. Blog and news articles, for example, they have all their blog on WordPress and you're going to migrate it over to Editor X. How many blog articles are there? And are we migrating those to a new platform? And what is the new platform? You're just identifying these for yourself. And keep in mind that this website scope workbook is for you. Your client doesn't see this. You see it for you to make sure that you're considering all of the elements of this site that you need to consider. And then the final section there is other considerations. Anything else that we need to address in our scope of this website? Okay, now this part right here is your saving grace. I didn't do this until probably 7, 8 years into my agency. This is the what is included, what isn't included list. And it's easy for us when we're creating a proposal for a client or scoping a project. It's easy for us to say, yeah, what's all this stuff, what's included in this? And we write the list of stuff that's included. Well, I learned that I am more protected if I also make assumptions that the client might assume and disclude them. Is that even a word? Let me know in the chat. Is disclude a word? But if not, we're going to exclude. Hey, that's the word, exclude. We're going to exclude them in the thing. I like disclude. I think I'm going to start using that, disclude. So we're going to exclude them from the scope of this site. Now let's go through this list. I won't go into this in super detail because it'll take us a while, but this is included inside of the website scope workbook. And it's all the stuff that you need to consider. And if you put that it's not included, then the client needs to know that it's not included and it needs to be in the contract that you give your client. So number 1, content strategy. Content strategy. Yep, we're going to do that. We're going to identify their content and outline it. Number 2, information architecture. Yep, we're going to create a sitemap of all the pages of the site. We're going to do that. Copywriting. Nope, we're not going to do the copywriting. So right there, just that one little X in the no column can protect you from the client making an assumption that copywriting, that you were going to write all the copy for their website. Proofreading. Now, yeah, you will proof for spelling and grammar checks or punctuation and things. You'll proof the content that they send you, but you're not going to write it. UX wireframes. Yep, we're going to wireframe it. And we're going to look at wireframes here in a minute. UI, visual design. We're going to do the visual design. Art direction. Yep, we're going to have a senior level person. It's going to be me, but it's somebody senior level is going to look at your stuff. If you're a solo freelancer, it's probably you. Icon design. Nope, we're not going to design custom icons for you. We're going to use downloadable icon set, or we're going to use font awesome. You identify what you're going to use if it's a no. That's not custom icon design. Typography design, we're not going to design a custom font for you. Font licenses, I got burned on this. $300. The client had some font that they wanted to use and they needed it to be on the website, and we didn't have this in our scope, and they assumed that that their scope included everything they'd need to have their site look the way it needed to online. And so we had to buy a font license and absorb it in our project. What did I do? I put on there, yep, it's included, or nope, it's not included. From then on, just in case, it protects my downside. Custom photography, nope, we're not going to do custom photography. We're going to use stock photography from Envato elements that we subscribe to for our stock photos. You can put something like that in there, that's what we're going to use. All right, next, infographic design. Yes or no? Are you going to design some infographics? This will burn you, where the client says, hey, I thought we'd have some cool interactive infographic on this page. Well, if you put a no, we're not going to design some infographic in here, then you have the ability to push back on the client. Illustration, custom illustration, yes or no? Content management system, yes or no? Third-party integrations. Are we going to hook this up to the NASA space station so we can launch the rocket? Yes or no? No. I put no on third-party integrations unless they're listed inside of the scope. And it says that here in the description. Anything not listed is considered out of scope. So for third-party integrations, third-party tools, third-party licenses, we're not going to pay for your license to use Google Maps, for example. The client has to pay for that to have the customized Google Map sit inside of their site. Social media sharing, we'll use add this and share this, or whatever's built into the platform we're using. So yes or no, is it included? Yes or no. Next, on the next page, social media integrations. I think that was on the top of the last page. No, social media sharing. Social media integrations was the API. Are we going to go and suck in all their Instagram and customize it to look good inside their site? Yes or no? Put no on most of this stuff. Site traffic expectations. The site will be optimized for search, but ongoing search optimization is not included in this scope. So site traffic expectations, contact form database, blog, gamification, localization, foreign languages, and if foreign language translation is included or not included. Translation services relating to that. Are we going to go and take all their website content and translate it for them? E-commerce, responsive design, animation and motion, front-end development, back-end programming, domain registration, subdomain design and development, gated content like password protected content, and QA testing. Are these included? Yes or no? You want to put that, you want to determine that in your scoping process and then put it into your contract. And then we'll jump through this last section here, cross-platform browser capability. Man, we used to get burned on this from freaking Internet Explorer. In fact, if you've ever been burned on making something work on Internet Explorer, put that in the chat, because we would have a client, they would say, hey, it doesn't work on my browser. It worked on everything else, but then they have some Internet Explorer 10 or whatever, or 8 or whatever, and that's what they use. Yeah, Internet who. So back in the day, it used to be a thing. And so our guys would have to go and customize everything so that it freaking looked good on IE. I hated it, but I got burned financially on that a few times. Focus group testing, are we doing that? Website hosting, does it include that? I put in here, like the Editor X monthly fees or any other corresponding fees are not included. They're not included. It's anticipated that monthly fees for hosting will be paid directly to the host by the client. So that's a clause that's important to have in your contract. Say, no, it doesn't include website hosting. You have to pay for that independent of our project. project management system, account management, third-party vendor management, client requested after hours staffing. Okay, this one I put in there because my clients started to expect, hey, what, I called yesterday at 7 and nobody answered the phone at your office. And I'm like, that's because we don't have after hours staffing available for you. That's a no on every single thing. So start putting that in your contract. Client requested after hours staffing, not included. We adhere to 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, Monday through Friday, and that's our availability. But after hours, we're not available. Client requested travel. This one burned me. It burned 2 of my employees who went to fly to Washington, D.C. to meet with a client who was frustrated about a project on December 22nd, and they flew home like on the 23rd, which is 2 days before Christmas. And they were having to fly to go and meet with this client, to go and talk them off a ledge and rescope this project. And the client assumed that they shouldn't have had to pay extra for it. They just thought, well, some travel should be included in your price. So I put, from then on, client requested travel out of scope. I will go visit my client if I choose that I need to, and I will pay for it. But if my client requires it, then they have to pay for that travel cost separate from this contract. And then client communication and correspondence. Okay. All right. Now, everything that is in this website scope workbook gets ported over to your contract. That's the magic. And I have that exact yes, no box put into my contract template. I have a web design business bootcamp course that I'll share with you later, but my contracts are included and my proposals and things are pre-written and included in that. And you'll see pieces of this content in there. So anyway, this is just a screenshot of what that contract looks like. You want to make sure that you take that yes, no checkbox, put it into your contract. Is it included, yes or no? Okay, we're going to go to phase-based production now. Now we've got the scope. We understand the scope. We understand what we're going to build. Now, how do we phase this project out, and what does that look like? And Madeline, let's drop in another poll. What is the biggest challenge you have with website projects? What's the biggest challenge you have with website projects? Changing client scope, pricing the website profitably, technical issues, finding good developers, and finding good designers. What's your biggest challenge that you have with website projects? Curious to see the stats on this too. So pricing the website profitably. Yeah, pricing's a big one. And clients changing scope, that's the majority right there, about 80% of the people. Technical issues, 10%. And I'm actually surprised finding good developers and finding good designers is a little lower because there is a high demand right now for talent. So, and probably that relates to a lot of you being the good developer, being the good designer. Okay, great. Let's go back to the presentation, and we're going to talk about phase-based production. Phase-based production. Okay, here we go. Phase-based production. Phase-based production is an organizational strategy for project execution. And in all the projects that you do in your business, website projects need it the very, very most. It's so important to do phase-based production for website projects. And if we look at this is what your client thinks the phases are. They think that phase 1, build a website. That's all it is. You just push the Photoshop button, build a website, and they think that that's what it takes. But there's so much more to it, and you know that, and you need to help articulate that to your clients. This is a small phase website project. You might break it into 3 different phases. You go and say phase 1 is the strategy phase, phase 2 is the design phase, and phase 3 is the development phase. 3 phases. And that's a genuine phase strategy that can work for a lot of smaller websites. So you might do something like that. Here's a 5-phase system that I'm going to walk you through in detail and show you examples of what the deliverables are for each of these phases. But this 5-phase system is what I use at my agency. Phase 1, it's website strategy and information architecture. What are we going to build? Who are we trying to target? How do we structure the information and the features? Then phase 2, we're going to do UX design, which are the wireframes. Phase 3, we're going to do user interface design, which is the visual design on top of the wireframes. Phase 4, we're going to do the beta development, getting the site constructed. And then phase 5 is alpha development and launch, putting in the final content and QA testing and then launching. That's the 5-phase system. Now, phase-based production allows you to have a clear view of completed work. When UX wireframing design phase is done, check, it's done. And reopening that phase will cost the client more money. I have a clause that I'm going to give you to put in your contract for that. Phase-based production allows you to schedule your invoices properly. You can say, hey, here's an example on the screen. Invoice number 1, at the start of the project, we're going to invoice 100% of phase 1 and 50% of phase 2. That's the invoice at the very start. And then you jump over, and when we finish phase 2 and that's approved, UX design and wireframes, we're going to invoice the final 50% of phase 2, 100% of phase 3, and 100% of phase 4. So we're going and we're putting our payment schedule being based on the phases that we're executing for the client. Now, one of the things that I recommend is to make the final phase invoice the smallest. Put the least amount of money in the last phase. So here we have phase 1, $1,000, phase 2, $3,000, phase 3, $3,000, phase 4, $4,000, and phase 5, $1,000. Now, what happens when a client won't give you final copy? You've got the whole site built. It's all beta built and ready. They won't give you the final photos. They won't give you the final copy. And you're sitting there with the entire website built, ready for final stuff, and you can't get it from the client and you can't get approval from the client. What do? Well, you're out the phase 5 invoice only. And in this situation, you will have been able to collect $11,000 of your $12,000 budget. And if the client never gives you the content, then you still got the majority of the money for the project. This is why I put that smallest number in the final phase. Has this ever happened to you? Has this ever happened to you? You have a client who won't approve the final. They won't approve the final. And they're holding out, and you're stuck waiting to invoice them half the project. Has that ever happened to you? So if so, put that in the chat, and lots of yeses coming in there. So do it based on phases, and you eliminate that problem in the future. You have a small invoice on the end. Phase-based production helps the client see the full level of effort. Also, this is one of the big benefits. This is what your client thinks when they come to you. They think, hey, we need you to build a website, and that's easy. And if you tell them, okay, yeah, we'll build your website, and then the client says, okay, well, great, that looks easy. All of a sudden, their budget is small because it looks small. If you tell the client, okay, let me walk you through our process. Phase 1, strategy. 2, UX. 3, UI. 4, we go to beta development. 5, we go to alpha. And then the client can sit back and say, oh, wow, website's a lot more work than what I thought it was going to be. I get why it's $15,000 and not $500 like I thought. They start to understand because they can see the full scope of that. Pete Preston, I asked for 50%, but when they won't finish, you still get burned. 50-50 billing sucks. I have multiple videos on that. Go find them on my YouTube and Instagram. 50-50 billing. And I go into that in my courses as well. Okay, because of that reason, the client won't They won't pay you, or they won't approve the final. Okay, now here's an editor X phase process. And we're going to go through this and how it actually works. Now, here's the contract clause. When you do phase-based production, here's the contract clause that you put in your contract. Take a screenshot of this. Phase approvals. The project phases included in this agreement build on each other. Once a phase is approved and we move on to the next phase, any request to reopen and change a previously approved phase may require a change order with adjustments to both budget and timeline. So now you can say, hey, that phase is done. And then the client, UX is done. And then the client gets to the end of beta build and they say, hey, you know what? We really want to change the structure of how these pages are done. We need to do some more wireframes. And you say, okay, we can do more wireframes. We got to go and reopen phase 2, and then we have to redo phase 3, and that'll cost you X, and it'll delay the project by 6 weeks. But we're happy to do it. And you have a clause that you can push back on the client with because you budgeted it based on phases. Okay. Here we go. Project organization. Continuing on to phases. And how do we break these phases down into the tasks that we use to execute on our projects? So let's go through each of these. Project, phase, milestones and rounds, and tasks. The project is the thing you're creating for the client. It's the global thing. You're creating a website. You're creating print collateral. You're creating logo design, strategy services. The project is the thing that you're going to create. In this situation, it's a website. The phases are the logical segments of that work. And I gave you the examples for website projects and a couple of scaled back versions. The best practice is usually 3 to 5 phases. And it gives you so many benefits. It helps the client clearly see completed work. It helps create your invoicing schedule and helps the client see the full scope of work and understand why this costs so much money, why it's not $500. The milestones are specific deliverables or delivery times inside of each phase. They're also referred to as deadlines or rounds and revisions. You'll hear those things: milestones, deadlines, rounds, revisions. Milestones control the project flow, and milestones should be included for both the agency and the client. This is where a lot of agencies or creatives get burned as well. They don't put in how many times the client actually gets to make changes or interact with you or have a meeting with you. And so the client makes assumptions that they can have as many meetings as they want. And then you start to lose money on the project. I'm going to show you how we break this down. The tasks. A task list is the checklist of activities necessary to execute on a milestone delivery. And you include internal and external tasks. And these are also referred to as processes or systems, and they ensure that each project is executed in the same way in spite of which team member is working on the project. So we're going to go through and I'm going to show you a breakdown of each of these right here. Jeanette, I only got the download for the worksheet, but not the slides. Yes, the slides are not in the download, but send me a DM or send me an email after this. My email's on the bottom of my website, michaeljanda.com, and I will export these slides and send them to any of you who have been on here. So I'll make a page that you can download them from. Okay, here we go. Phases. You want to identify your phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. That's what you're going to identify. And inside of those phases, we want to break down the rounds. Agency and client, agency and client. I'm going to give you examples here in a second. And then inside of the rounds, we want to break down the tasks. What do you have to do to execute on that round? Let's look at an example. But this is why these things, when we have so many moving parts for a website, you end up with this frustrated client because there's so many tasks that have to happen to execute on a website. There's so many moving parts. And if you don't have this structured, systematic way to go through those, you can easily lose money on website projects. Okay, here's the phases and the delivery rounds, and I'm going to give you examples of each of these. Take a screenshot of this while we're on here if you're interested in this breakdown. So phase 1, we go to strategy, phase 2 UX, phase 3 UI, phase 4 beta, and phase 5. Sorry, I have a typo. No, we don't have 2 phase 3s, but we have UI design. And that should be alpha development. My apologies. So we're going to go into each of these and what do they look like here. Now we take this phase 1 strategy and we have section 1. We're going to do research. You saw it up on the top. Research. And inside of research, what are the tasks that we need to do to execute on research? Phase 1 in the top, we have content framework. What are the tasks that we need to execute to do content framework? The third thing inside of phase 1, sitemap. What are the tasks we need to do to execute on sitemap? This is what the phases and milestones look like when you spell it all out. And these are available in my web design course. And I have some of these in my freelance course as well for multiple different projects. But the project phases and milestone tasks example. So it's a list of the phases, the rounds or milestones, and all the tasks. And this is what it looks like when you zoom in. You see that phase 3, UI design. Now, on the top, we're going to describe phase 3. Following the approval of wireframes, we're going to be ready to start the visual design process. The process begins with mood boards that help us establish the design style to be used throughout the site, blah, blah, blah. Now you go here and the white boxes are a task. Task number 1, we're going to create a Pinterest board and we're going to gather user interface ideas for mood boards. The mood board styles will be based on initial research of the target client, of the target audience, client industry, client brand, competitors, and kickoff meeting discussion. Then we go to use the Pinterest ideas to create 3 mood board styles for internal review. And then we critique those mood boards with the internal design team or art director. And we just check each of those off. Now we know that we've done the mood boards right. Now we're ready for round 1 delivery. We will develop and present a minimum of 3 mood boards. Each mood board will be a single page collage of design styles extracted from other designs we find in our research. That's what the mood board delivery is. And then the client gets to give you feedback or approve. The client will provide the agency with feedback on the mood boards presented or approve one of the mood boards for use. Okay. Now, you go in and you create these rounds, these milestones and tasks for each thing that you do inside of the project. And those get stuck into your contract. This is how you prevent scope creep. You have it detailed inside of your contract. You have the phases there. You have the tasks, you have the phases and the milestones in the contract. You have the feedback opportunities in the contract. You have the website scope in the contract. And then it protects you from the future. Now, if you see the PDF, put that in round 1. And what do I have to do to wireframe the homepage? If I'm websites that we saw, I want them to take the content outline that we identified as tasks. So here's them. So go in and create that. We'll have an opportunity that I'll chime in Again, we're trying to take a website that is chaotic and a lot of moving parts, and we're trying to create a systematic structure so that we can execute on it, building one block on top of the next until we get to the final site that functions and solves the client's objectives. Phase one strategy. The strategy phase one, and you'll probably want to screenshot a handful of these just to have these handy. Who is this website for? That's the persona. What problem do they have? That's the problem we're trying to solve for these end user. How will we solve that problem? That's the strategy. And then we expect the solution to do this. That's the objective. And the features that we will need inside of this solution will be this. So that's the general, I mean, this is the simplest way to spell out strategy for any creative project, but use this as your framework. And we could go, we could do a 5-hour workshop just on strategy services, but I'm just going to gloss over that and give you this as a starting point for your strategic thinking on websites. Next, deliverable inside of our strategy phase. A great deliverable is user personas. The target user, you create fictional people that are similar to the end user, and then you create a persona for those people that you can use as this extension of the creative team. So when you're sitting with the client and the client says, well, I don't like that homepage hero section. I don't like that at all. And you can say, well, it really doesn't matter what I like or you like. Will Jane like it? We always have to remember that Jane is the one that is going to be using this site. Jane is our person that we're trying to reach. Will this resonate with Jane? That's the framing. And that's why personas are so valuable, because you can use them to back your design decisions. If you create personas for your projects as a standard flow, put that in the chat. If you're going to start adding personas to your project flow, put that in the chat. Either way, it gives you the power to say, client, I don't care what, you don't say it this way. This is the rude way. Client, I don't care what your opinion is. I care about John and Jane. That's who we're trying to reach. And if you were smart, you'd get out of your own way and start considering your target user. Now, you don't say it that way, but that's the way you think in your brain. That's the way you think in your brain. And when you talk that way, and when you have this as ammunition in an arrow in your quiver for your client meetings, it gives you much more strength in your positioning with your clients. Okay. The next deliverable inside of the phases is the sitemap. The sitemap, taking all these content pieces and pages that the client has and putting them into an org chart of the pages. By the way, Taco Pixels just chimed in there, UXpressia. I love UXpressia, and that's the one that I recommend inside my web design course. So that's a great share. Thanks, Taco Pixels, for sharing that. It's a great one. If you're going to start doing personas and user journeys, that's my favorite tool as a guide for you. Okay, so site mapping, taking the pages that you've talked about all the way back to the website scope and turning them into a visual guide of here's the pages we're going to build. It's part of this information architecture process. Content framework. And I go into super detail on this in my course as well, so I'm just going to gloss over it here. You take each of the pages and you write a general description of what will be in that page. The home page, we have, okay, on the home page, we're going to have a hero section, and then we're going to have 3 promos that link to these 3 sections of the site. And then we're going to end it with a call to action to download the free ebook. That's what you write inside the content description. And that right there is enough information. That one little paragraph describing what's going to be on that page is enough information for you to go and wireframe that page before you have final content. So we want a description that's clear enough for us to be able to wireframe against it. Okay, that's just a simple spreadsheet. You can take a screenshot of this and recreate it, or I have these in my course that you can download as well, a couple different versions, and examples of massive websites, like hundreds and hundreds of page websites from my agency of content frameworks that are just gigantic for you to start seeing what it takes to execute on some of these higher six-figure website projects. Okay, phase 2, UX design. Here are the steps we're going to do in UX design. Now, UX design, this is the analogy or metaphor that I use when I describe wireframes to clients. I tell the client, hey, previous page quickly. Here's the previous page. I think somebody just asked if we can pop that on to take a screenshot. So take a screenshot if you want to grab this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, without the chart, this one. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, looks like she got it. Okay. All right, wireframes. This is the best way to describe wireframes. The best way to describe wireframes to a client. You tell the client, hey, wireframes are like blueprints to a house. Wireframes are like blueprints to a house. You don't just go and say, I'm going to go build a house, and you go buy the wood and start hammering it together. You go and you have to create all the measurements and all the structure, and how are these rooms going to be laid out? What's the flow going to be through them? Well, that's what we do in web design as well. We wireframe all of the pages. We create a blueprint structure of the pages. And that's such an important thing, because we want to make sure that we flow the user through the site and get the desired objective to happen, get that desired action from them. So that metaphor, I highly recommend that you use that, because that resonates with almost everybody above the age of 8 in all of the world, understanding the blueprint to home versus wireframe to website metaphor. Okay, inside, there are a couple different ways that you can do wireframes, and I'm going to share those with you here. So wireframing, the first one, Editor X gives you a handful of wireframes that are pre-built wireframes inside of their tool. They're called layouters, and they're just pre-built gray box wireframes. And you could just take these layouters and structure them on top of each other, and then export that page into an image and get your client to approve that as the structure of the page. So that's an easy way to wireframe a site if you use Editor X as your build platform. And here's an example of like a latest news module with 3 boxes, and it looks wireframey. There's a lot of different visual ways to do wireframes. I'm going to show you something that I built coming up here. Another way that you can use Editor X and wireframing is to use compositions. Now, the compositions inside of Editor X are pre-built modules that are ready for you to skin with your design. And these are super, super powerful, because they contain most of the types of content modules that you're going to need to stack on top of each other to create a website. There's 200 of these in total. And what I did as part of my course, the Web Design Business Bootcamp, you can see the URL on there, is I took every one of the 200 composition modules inside of Editor X, and I created a vector wireframe for each one. And so I did that in Adobe XD, but I give it to you in the course as an SVG and a PDF. And here's how that works. You have this, the bottom of this right here is the composition module inside of Editor X. And the top is my vector wireframe in Adobe XD of that element. So that's an example. Now I can take that, or here's one more example, then I'll show you how I use these. Then I have this one for like featured projects, this module in this composition module in Editor X, and up above is the wireframe module in Adobe XD. And you see that listed right here. Here's a testimonial module, the screenshot below and the wireframe version above. Now what you can do is you can stack these modules on top of each other super quickly to create page wireframes. These right here, for example, I made in like a minute, 2 minutes, something like that, because I'm just grabbing a welcome module, popping it on top of a product module, popping it on top of a testimonial module, popping it on top of one of the 10 call to action modules. And now I have the wireframes, they're all ready. And now when it comes to building the site, it becomes super easy because I'm designing the wireframe using the modules that I know are already pre-built inside of Editor X. I get the client to approve the wireframe. Then I know that building it is going to be easy because I'm just going to visually design on top of this wireframe. And then I'm going to go and build the site using the composition modules. I'm going to walk you through that process here coming up. Phase 3, UI design. UI design is the visual design. So now we had the client, they approved all the wireframes of the site. Now we're going to go into UI design, that visual design. And shout out to Dribbble, who's hosting this event here today. But what a great resource for mood board researching. There's so much great design on all over Dribbble, and you can find this stuff on Behance and find it on Pinterest and things. People have tagged this stuff or pinned this stuff and put it in other places. But Dribbble, man, people are uploading awesome design. And the way the mood board process goes is you find a design that you like this one here on the right, and you say, oh, you know what, that little hamburger menu with the icon of the logo, that's a cool little element. I'm going to stick that little piece in my mood board for my client. And then you compose a grid of design widgets, design pieces that convey the message, the visual message that represents the client's brand, and you get the client to sign off on the mood board look and feel. I go into mood boarding in this whole process in like 3 lessons in my course, but it's getting the client to give you feedback on design that isn't yours. This is what I love about mood boards. If you do mood boards in your process, put that in the chat. And if you're going to start after this, put that in the chat. But Tahir Simsek, what is meant by a mood board? A mood board is the general feel of a design without doing the actual design. So these are examples right here. I took these little widgets right here and put them into these boxes, and then I show that to the client, and then we talk about this design. And the client says, oh, I really like on the bottom left, that 95.1, that little thing with the visual grid behind it, the sound waves, and that little circle, that's really cool. I really like that. And you say, yeah, I really like that too. And then the client says, ooh, but I hate that image on the top right. I don't like it when we do that faded out button look. I don't like that look. And then you say, yeah, I don't really like that look either. And you can say that because you didn't design that look. You took a little screenshot, little widget from somewhere that somebody else designed, and you're using it to just give a visual idea of design conversation before you've designed anything for the client. And now the client can bash on these all day long. You didn't design them. It's not going to hurt your feelings. And the client will feel more open in that. You can say, client, we didn't design any of this stuff. We're just trying to have this design conversation with you based on things that we found. Okay, so mood boards help you get this general sense, design conversation with the client before you go into creating your design for that client. Now, this is the breakdown that you can think of. Mood board on the bottom, the visual design style stuff. We had that conversation, the client approved that mood board. Then you go to wireframe. Well, we had the wireframes in the previous phase, but then you have wireframe, and now we skin the wireframe with the mood board and create the visual design. So we take all those little widgets that we had in the mood board and we use them inside of our design to craft the page. And when you do that process, it simplifies everything. You have the client feedback in the right process for clients. Okay, for the execution of this project. All right, now, the visual design process. If you've used the wireframes from the compositions, the visual design process goes fast. Here's an example of a composition module in Editor X. There's 200 of these. We used it in a wireframe, and we can easily reskin it for our client to show to build the page. There's also this in Editor X, which I love, and that's full built website templates. The full page, not just the composition modules, but the full page. And if we take this as our starting point, we choose one of these. Here on the left, you can see this Editor X website template called Synthy. And on the right, I did this design in 8 minutes. It's a design reskin of the Synthy template. And I popped in Netflix logo and I popped in Netflix images and made it a page about recruiting people to Netflix. It took 8 minutes. Now, if I would have wireframed that like this one, see if you see on the left, Editor X website template, the Crystal Project, and you take the time to use the wireframe kit to wireframe up that page, the client approves that wireframe, and then you do the UI design inside of Adobe XD or Sketch or whatever you want to use, Figma. You design on it in your design software, but you're designing in harmony with the wireframe, which you know matches the built site. Then the build becomes super easy. The client approved the wireframe, the client approved the visual design, the client will approve the built design. And when you build it this way, everything's responsive. Everything is already working. And you can customize things completely in Editor X. I mean, you can change where these images are. You can change the size of the headline. You can change how things respond in responsive sizing. There's just so many things that you can customize. Everything you can customize. But starting with one of these pre-built modules makes that process easy for you. Okay, so this is the example. You wireframe using that wireframe kit, or you make wireframes of the template that you are going to build from, or you wireframe the custom modules that you're going to do for a completely custom site. Doesn't matter what your process is, you have to do the wireframe, and then you design on top of the wireframe, the visual design, and then you build that. And my recommendation for you is design using design software. Design using Adobe XD, design using Figma, design using Sketch. That's where digital design happens today. Design using that. Visual, the build piece, I don't recommend that you just design inside of Editor X. It's faster to do it inside of your design software and to get your client sign off on it and then do the build inside of Editor X. But when you reverse engineer these modules from Editor X, turn them into wireframes, and use that as the starting point, man, the whole thing goes so smoothly and quickly. Okay, phase 4, beta development. Beta development. These last two are some quick ones. Beta development. Now, the beta build, this phase is the website constructed without final content. It's not final content. So the beta build right here, you have on the left, it is the site, and it has lorem ipsum copy, just placeholder text. It has gray boxes or colored boxes for placeholder images. You haven't created those things yet, but you build the whole site because you had wireframes approved. A beta build can be like a functioning wireframe. You take the wireframes that the client approved and you build it so that the site works. And now when we go to the alpha build, we need the final content from the client, and then we integrate it into the site. So that's the difference between beta build and alpha build. The beta build, no final content. The alpha build is final content. The final content is in place. And after we get to the alpha build, we integrate all the content. That's the steps in the task list. And then we change things as we need to for responsive conversion. And if you're doing a full custom site, you're going to need to do a lot of modifications for responsive. If you're using one of the compositions and stacking compositions from Editor X, they're already coded to work responsively, and you may have to adjust things, but it's already mostly working and ready. So you may have some tweaks. So responsive conversion is the next piece inside of this alpha build. And then we go into quality assurance testing. And this is another thing that I love about Editor X. It's built into the tool. You can click the site checker and check the page, and it will tell you, hey, this link doesn't work and this link is missing. And it'll tell you, hey, it doesn't work responsively properly. It checks all the breakpoints that you have inside of inside of Editor X, which you can have 6. You can have 6 breakpoints. And so this site checker just checks this stuff for you. It saves you. Somebody just said, Vicky Borges, site checker is life. It so is, because you can't always trust that it's your click is going to find all those things. Site checker, I think it's in tools. Somebody just asked where the site checker is. I think it's in tools inside the Editor X menu. Okay, checks the breakpoints, checks for broken links, and you should visually check each page as well. And then you're ready to publish. And publishing on Editor X is easy. Just click the big giant blue publish button. In fact, they send you notifications that say, hey, you're ready to publish? So it'll send you that occasionally when you log in or you make changes to the site. Publishing the site is easy, and it publishes it to a live server. Okay, so this is the breakdown. This is how those phases go and what these deliverables are and how we take this chaotic website process and we turn it into this systematic box by box execution of the project. And it just goes so much more smoothly. And those of you who have clients who say, oh, can we have that website done in a week? You can start saying, no, not make it good. We can't make it good in a week because there's way too much to do. If you're saying yes to these super consolidated timelines and the client's expecting great results, you're shooting yourself in the foot and them too. It's just not possible to crank these things out in a couple of days. If you're considering strategy and doing the UX design and doing UI design and getting through this beta build and getting through the approvals, the proper approvals. Now, for me, that's coming from my perspective that I don't want you doing $2,000 websites anymore. I want to scale you up to doing what you do for $2,000 now becomes a $15,000 website. And you qualify for the $50,000 websites out there because you have a more robust process that you sell to your clients. That's what I want for you. Now, if you want to do $500 websites, Editor X and customizing their pre-built templates, you probably even can still make money doing that. I don't recommend that as your business model. And the tool is more powerful than just that limited capability. You can do more with it. Okay, let's go on to this last section, and let's throw on a poll because we haven't done one here for a minute. Madeline, let's throw on the what is the biggest challenge in your creative business right now? What is your biggest challenge? A, finding clients. B, finding higher paying clients. C, pricing your work. D, managing my business. E, no work-life balance. And F, all of the above. Help me. Those are the options in there. Let's see what we have. Finding clients, 25%, and pricing work, 25%. That's interesting because I expected, and I usually see on a poll like this, I usually see higher on finding higher paying clients. I usually see that as a higher number, but I'm sure we'll have some more people chime in here coming up on that poll. Okay. Madeline, we can go back to the presentation, but keep the poll live, right? We're going to go into this last section and then we're going to do some QA. So keep your questions handy. Managing clients through the process. Managing clients through the process. Here are some tips for you for managing clients through this process. Number one, present everything. Present your research, present your wireframes, present your mood boards, present your design, present the beta build, present those things to the client. Take the time. Don't hide behind email and just send links to your client and say, hey, here's your design, and hope for the best. Hope that they come back with a positive email the next day. Don't do that anymore. Present it to the clients. Tell them why you made the design decisions that you made. Tell them how the decisions you made are going to help them achieve the objectives that they want for this website. Present those things. Presenting builds trust, and trust lessens the chaos in these projects. So this is you on the left, and there's your clients. You're presenting those things to them, and it changes the whole dynamic of your projects. If you are a chronic presenter, you do it, put that into the chat. And if you are going to start presenting everything now, put that in the chat. But you really need to do that. This is one of the Mike Janda pet peeves as well. Okay, now we go to the next tip. Stick to the scope. If you've defined the website details, the pages, the features, the whole scope, and put it into the contract, you stick to the scope. And if they change the scope, you change the price. If they change the scope, you change the price. That's your new motto. If they change the scope, you change the price. Keep that in your motto. You put your website scope workbook information into your contract, and you put your phases and milestones into your contract. And then you put this clause into the contract. Take a screenshot of this. This document contains a detailed scope of the project and execution plan. Any requests not detailed in this document will be considered out of scope and may necessitate a change order. All change orders will be discussed with the client prior to incurring extra costs. So this says everything that's not in the document is out of scope. If it's not listed there, it's out of scope. So now you have this little clause that says, hey, if I forgot something, then I'm going to put it in the out of scope, and we're going to talk about a change order. Okay, next, don't skip steps. You define your phases, milestones, tasks, and you don't skip things. One step at a time. You determine how you run your business, not your client. This is another motto that you say. I determine how I run my business, not my client. It's my business. If the client says, we don't need those wireframes, let's just jump to design. That's not theirs to choose. They don't get to choose that you don't do wireframes. It's your business. It's your process. Don't skip steps that you've labeled as important. Client says, we don't really need to, let's just skip that whole strategy part. We don't really need to do that. They don't know. They're not you. It's not your business. I don't tell the plumber who comes to fix my plumbing how to fix my plumbing. I hire them for their expertise. And if the client doesn't trust you and wants to change the process, then you need to work to build more trust. And being systematic and methodical, like we've done in this presentation, will help you build more trust with those clients. Okay, number 4, document everything. This is a business. Document everything. Any verbal conversations are followed up with written notes. You have no more just verbal only. You have written documentation for everything. At my agency, we use the project management software Teamwork. There's also Basecamp and Monday and Asana and ClickUp. And inside of Editor X, there are tools to allow you to manage communication. You can invite people into the site and use their internal chat tool to manage the project itself with your clients. and with other people on your team. So some of these project management capabilities are built right into this platform as well. And here's a couple shots of that. You have this inbox and you have the people that are attached to the project, and you can have chats and correspondence with them. So that's a helpful thing. You can also do your price quotes and estimates and invoicing through EditorX as well. So if you're billing your client, you can bill them right through this tool and have it be attached to the actual project that you're building for them. So some really great back-end features inside that tool. Okay, those were the last little tips. This is the bulk of the presentation. We're going to go into QA process here and bring a few people on stage as well. In this, I still have my screen shared. There is the link to the downloads. And in fact, here's the deal. I'm going to add to that package this presentation. So if you already downloaded this from that link, go and re-download it, let's say in 1 hour from the time we end. And in that hour, I'm going to upload this presentation into that package, and you can download it again with all the slides. Just don't share it with everybody. You get the benefit because you came. So don't go like post it on your LimeWire or wherever people are hacking stuff these days. Okay, so I'm going to do that as soon as we're done here. Next, check out EditorX and follow me on Instagram, YouTube. And let me tell you, I have a special offer. EditorX asked me if we could do something special for the people who attend this event. And I did that. My course, Web Design Business Bootcamp, which is now a 23-hour course. At the end, it'll be about a 30-hour course about how to design, sell, build, manage profitable website projects. I have a special coupon from EditorX for you that is EditorX bonus, and it brings the price down to $299 from the $349 launch price. And that's the cheapest I've ever sold any course ever, just so you know, any of my bundled courses. I have a couple small courses that are less expensive, but that's a gift from EditorX for this presentation. In there, it includes all of my agency SOPs, all my task lists, all my phases, all my rounds. It includes all my exact contracts that are pre-written. They're not lorem ipsum. It has training on the ongoing services. This is the last module that is coming. Ongoing services, like how do we sell SEO or content management to clients, or conversion optimization. How do I sell that into my client to get ongoing revenue from these website clients? And it gives you in-depth training on every one of the phases that we went through here today. And it also has a huge module. It's 3.5 hours on how to use EditorX as your platform. So the 20-hour course is all the stuff that's platform independent, but there's a 3-hour module for EditorX people that includes my wireframe kit that I showed you here of the 200 wireframes. So if you use wireframes, if you use EditorX, that wireframe kit's going to be a game changer for you of those compositions. So you can check that out at michaeljanda.com/webdesign. Again, the coupon code is EditorX bonus, EditorX bonus. And then let's just talk about EditorX for a second, because if you haven't used that, and I know I hammered home a lot of great things about EditorX in this presentation, but you can design and build sites without code. You can have teamwork and collaboration, multiple people from your team working on the same site at the same time. It's a game changer in this global workplace that we have, where your co-team members are in other countries. Man, you can log in and work things on the same time. It's a game changer. You can easily manage and update website content. It has a CMS built in, and you can customize code anywhere. You can put in custom code for all your sites. So it is a custom website solution with the benefits of a templated foundation. So man, it's just the best of both worlds. And like I said, at some point, it's a really valuable thing that I would have used at my agency if I still had my agency. There's no question. It includes e-commerce, SEO, email marketing, subscriptions, events, payments, project management, live chat. I mean, there's just so many features that are in there. And then shout out again to Dribbble for their awesome platform, which has just become so valuable to the design community over the last 10 years since Dribbble really emerged as a destination for designers. What I love about Dribbble is it's not just design, but they'll help you find clients and find designers. And there's courses and there's workshops like this that they put on for the design community. So such a great, great company and platform. Okay, if you did the task review while we were talking, or the task while we were talking of creating a phase, making your rounds, and then putting some tasks in that, feel free to throw that into the chat for other people to benefit from your wisdom on how you might have sectioned out some of the projects that you do. If you're willing to share, go ahead and share that now so people can go and grab those out of the chat. And then the final thing, let's jump into QA for this project or for this presentation. And while you're dropping some QA into the thing and upvoting things, I'm going to take a drink because this was a lot of talking. I feel like I have that white crackly stuff on the sides of my mouth. I feel like that's what I look like right now. Okay. All right, going over to QA. Is this workshop going to be recorded by any chance? Yes. Good. That was an easy question. Let's go to the upvoted 19. How to convince clients to use Wix versus WordPress or Webflow. Here's my feeling on all of these platforms. You tell your client that you are going to use the best platform to achieve their objectives. And if the best platform is Wix, because there's some cost savings and their objectives are simple and you can do it in Wix, then do it in Wix. But if the website is going to need something, the NASA launch a rocket button, and you need to do it fully custom, then do it fully custom. The platform shouldn't matter. You're selling a website to your client. And the most valuable part of the website is not the platform it's built on. It's what objectives are we trying to solve for this client, and does the website solve those objectives? That's the most important piece. So I would encourage you to position those conversations with the client as not, hey, we're going to build you a Wix site. Oh, we're going to build you an Editor X website. You're not building them a Wix site. You're not building them an Editor X website. You're building them a website. And you use the tool that makes the most sense to fulfill the objectives and sell it to them that way rather than the flip-flop of that. Okay, Shreya, 20 upvotes. How does one show a potential client that a designer working with no-code platforms like Wix can be a better fit for them than a software developer with experience in HTML, CSS, JS? Okay, so this attaches to the last answer, and I would position it that way too. I would say the same type of thing. You're not selling them a no-code website. You're selling them a website. You're building a site for them. And the platform doesn't matter as much as you fulfilling the objectives. Now, the way to, if they question the platform that you're going to use, you highlight the benefits. Highlight the benefits of a no-code platform. Hey, client, a developer is going to cost you, number one, a developer is going to be hard to find because the market for developers has gone crazy over the last 20 years, but especially the last 5. They're hard to find, they're in high demand, and the costs have gone up on them. A no-code platform allows me to continue to maintain your site for you post-launch. And we can have a maintenance agreement that we have just a monthly fee that I'll maintain it and I'll make changes. And you don't need to go and chase down a back-end programmer to make those changes. That's the real benefit of a no-code platform. Or if you're talking about a Wix platform, you can tell the client, hey, we're going to build on Wix because it's the best thing for your objectives and your budget, the parameters we're trying to work in. and we're going to build on that platform. And the benefit to you is that you can make the changes. We'll give you access to Wix, and you can update the text without having to tell anybody to do it. So highlight the benefits of working with you. Don't highlight the benefits of doing a custom website. And the benefits of that are things like, yeah, you can do anything. It's fully custom. But the negative of that is that it's expensive because it's fully custom. So when you're in sales in anything, you want to highlight the benefits of the solution that you're offering the client. Okay, hope that helps. Madeline, we were going to bring some people on stage. So at the start, she said, hey, if you have a question and you have the courage to jump on stage, I would love to connect with some people. So I think she said, raise your hand oh yeah, she just put it in the bottom corner. Raise your hand if you want to come on stage. And while she's getting somebody queued up, let's answer Farshad Sharifi's question, 14 upvotes. How would you manage lots of client websites in one place, updates, management, etc.? A project management software will help you with that. Using Teamwork, Basecamp, Monday, Asana, ClickUp, any of these kinds of things. And each of those things should be a project. And every time a client has a new task or a new update that they want to make, then it becomes tasks inside of that project. Those tasks need to get checked off by you or someone from your team. So using that can be helpful to have lots of clients in one place. We would have at my agency 50 ongoing clients with 60 ongoing projects at any given time. Now, not all of them were mega active. Like some of them would be waiting for content and they'd be in a delay pattern or whatever, but we would have tons and tons of projects. And if you have them organized right in a project management software, it becomes much, much easier. By the way, project management software, for the value to your business, most of them are dramatically underpriced. I mean, you can get a Basecamp account for $19 a month or something. Teamwork, the same thing, even cheaper, I think. I don't want to misquote, so I'm just going to go a little higher end of that, but it's not very expensive to manage a handful of projects inside of one of those tools. And it's well worth it. If you're not doing that now, I highly recommend that you do. Okay, Madeline, did anybody have the courage to, no, nobody wants to come on stage. Come on. I don't bite. Oh, we got one. Good. Okay, while she's getting somebody ready, let's go into any advice on pricing, hosting, and support. I don't like hosting small sites. If I'm going to do hosting, I do hosting for enterprise level sites where we can have it be a $10,000 a month spend and it gives you a certain quantity of development time. I don't believe that for most creatives, there is a lot of money to be made in trying to skim $10 off of a $20 hosting plan. And you're upcharging it by $10 every month. It's just one phone call. This is what I found, because we tried this at my agency and we had maybe 20 websites that we were hosting. And each of those sites we were making, $30, $40 a month or something of profit. But one phone call from one of those clients can wipe out all the profit from all the rest of the hosting profit for the month. So we ended up abandoning that. So I'm not a big fan of the pricing hosting, but I am a big fan of website maintenance as an ongoing service. And website maintenance can be something like every week you're going to run the site checker. Every week you're going to update plugins, or every week you're going to run the site through your own QA process that you use. And then you're going to send a report to the client saying, hey, your website's still up. We found this bug and this bug and this bug. We fixed those bugs. Every plugin's been updated. I'm a fan of that as an ongoing service, but not necessarily the hosting. Okay, so that answers that question. We have Alan coming on stage with us right now. Alan's got a sick black t-shirt and an awesome beard.
Hi.
We're match. He's the haired version of me. That's what we have.
I wanted a nice contrast there.
It's good. How are you?
All good, man. Thank you very
Good.
much. It was an awesome presentation. Really fresh of breath, a
Thank you.
breath of fresh air. Sorry.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you because I also have been involved for doing web design since very long ago, and for me, to be honest, I know it's since long, but since 5, 6 years ago, the whole mobile experience has become like the main target of the
Yeah.
main aim of the web page. Or you're designing great in desktop, and suddenly there is there is never an easy or great way if you have a good design. I mean, to translate that. But I just wanted to ask you about your thoughts on that because I get clients that say to me like, "Look, I don't even care about the desktop version." And I have clients that want like a great experience in both of them, and it's basically impossible. Or I don't not impossible, but I mean
Yeah.
I don't know what you think on that. Your
Yeah,
thoughts?
so the mobile first debate versus desktop first. And I recently was looking at statistics, and I may have put it in one of my lesson modules in my course, or I may have made it somewhere. I don't remember where I did it, but it was within the last few months. I looked at the mobile versus desktop usage, and
Mhm.
mobile has finally eclipsed desktop, not by a lot in primary usage for websites, but it's like 57% mobile first and 43% desktop, something like that,
Okay.
as the primary destination. If you look it up, you can see the statistics. Now, here's the challenge. And for me, it's easier to design big and make it small than it is to design small and make it big. So but I'm still bringing on 25 years of web design legacy thinking. I understand that my paradigms are different, that I always started desktop because mobile didn't
Yeah.
exist for half of my entire design career. So, but I still go desktop first because of that. It's easier to make things small than it is to make things big. The other reason is I'm a big fan of the wow factor on my
Yeah.
deliveries. I want my client to see it and say, "Wow, this is awesome." And if I
On the
show
phone.
them this little
Yeah.
screen and I try to get a wow from them, it's so hard. But if I
Yeah.
show them my big screen with the big key image and it just looks so wow, then I get a client who starts to admire the work more and love the work more and trust me more, and then I can walk them through that mobile process. So for me, that's my two logics on going desktop
Desktop
first
first.
still.
Yeah.
I would guess too, and this is just Mike Janda assumption, that we're probably to the point of where it's not going to change much. I don't
Yeah.
think I don't think you're going to see that in 3 years. 90% of people are mobile first on for
No.
website browsing. I think it's going to probably plateau about where it is. I don't think we see it change much. So I'd probably stick with where I am on that. What are your thoughts? I'm not
Uh,
the only smart. You've been doing this a long
look.
time too. So what do you think?
Look, for me, when Editor X or Wix came and the whole switching from one version to another was seamless. So I was only designing on desktop, and suddenly I just click a button, move some things, and it's already done for the mobile version. I
Yeah,
was very happy, to be
yeah,
honest, because for me, mobile version was something, those add-ons that for me is silly and takes a lot of work.
yeah,
And it was before, it was basically designing two sites.
yeah,
You went through that, no?
yeah,
With the whole pixel area and all that.
yeah.
And
Your breakpoints. You're coding
yeah,
in your breakpoint, and then you're
it was
testing. And
awful.
it's a
It
nightmare.
was awful.
Yeah,
Also it depended between the mobile that you were watching it on, and it was terrible.
yeah,
Now it's very easy. I
yeah,
also think like you, like it's gonna stay like the same,
yeah,
because I believe that now you will have pages that are meant to be watched on mobile, and you will have pages that are meant to be
yeah,
watched on desktop.
yeah,
Like I know that for contacting, for a small register for finding an address, which is a big deal in terms of web pages. I know mobile is very nice and people just
yeah,
have it ready, no? But if
yeah,
but if you're a serious person, if I go to the bank or whatever, I go to desktop. Like I need a good experience, a professional experience. So
Yeah.
yes, that will be it.
Yeah. Sounds like we're two old school people aligned. And shout out to Editor X, because it is, I was blown away
Yeah,
when I started fiddling with Editor X, and I was like, surely this is gonna suck when I turn it into the phone version.
man.
And it's just a simple button. You just click it on the top and it scales it down. And I was like,
No, no,
whoa, it
no,
worked.
no.
I can't believe it.
For
So
me,
I
was
was blown away at that.
the big deal of 2020 was Luke Skywalker on Mandalorian, and that breaking point.
That was it. Those were the two big things
Two big
in
things.
in 2020 or 2021.
Sure.
Yeah, and let's throw in the end of the pandemic in there too. Let's throw that in there
Besides that small
as a
thing,
big one.
you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right,
thank you very
Alan,
much,
great
Michael.
to chat with you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
man. All the
Appreciate it.
best.
Okay, we're gonna bring Evan on now. Hey,
Hey,
Evan, how are you?
hey, oh my gosh, this has been I'm just laughing about the Mandalorian and he's the haired version of you. I was just like, I've been sitting here really just to shout out to everybody who's put this on. Madeline and the rest of the team, you guys are just crushing it. This is, I don't know if you guys agree or not, but this has been easily the best event
Thank you.
by far. Home run. Go to sleep super happy tonight. Like,
great
amazing.
Great people behind the scenes, and two great organizations. I mean, Editor X is part of the Wix family, and just an awesome company, and forward thinking and ambitious. And Dribbble, like I already shouted out, man. And you seem old enough to know Dribbble from a decade ago. It's changed so much and just evolved and become such a great resource for the design community. So shout out to everybody on both those teams.
Yeah, and the chat has been really great. Like, just so many resources, very supportive.
Good.
Which has been my experience with the Wix partner community. It's been amazing. But I had a question for you. I have like a zillion notes, but one of the ones that kind of came up just from a business kind of perspective. There's a lot of, I love the project management stuff you talked about. I love how you're sharing your work agreement, templating and estimates and all that stuff. That's amazing. And I'm going to absolutely check out your course. But one of the ones that kind of rose to the surface to me was that you have all these big brands that you've worked with in the past. Right now, I'm in a position with my business where I took a year with Editor X and the Classic Editor, and I said, all right, I'm open to all types of business.
Yeah.
Every single like shotgun approach.
Yeah.
Whoever comes in the door, we're going to try to deliver as much value as possible. In the last 3 months, it's been like, okay, who do we love working with, and who, I've heard the expression, the riches are in the niches.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just ask you, has that been your experience? Is your niche like, I only work with global brands, or like, is that a niche even? I just wanted to know for you, is it about kind of defining who you can deliver the most value to, or is it platform based, right?
Yeah.
Like, is the niche about Editor X or what you're talking about, or is it about services? I'm just really curious, because I mean, you have so much experience and a huge amount of wisdom, and I'm like all ears. I'd love to hear.
All right. So the niching, I call it niches too, but I changed to niching because I have a global audience that corrected me enough times that I'm like, okay, I gotta dial back the hillbilly niche sounding thing and posh it up a little. So the niching, this is the mindset on niching. I've done a bunch of content on this. I think I have YouTube videos and Instagram content, and there's stuff in my courses too about niching. My thoughts on this. Number one, a lot of people rush to a niche. They feel like somebody said the riches are in the niches. I got a niche. And you niche by a wide variety of categories. It's not just the industry you serve. You niche by the services you offer. You niche by the price point that you sell those services at. You niche by your geographic location is part of your niching. You niche by industry. You niche by client type. And now a lot of people, when they hear niching, they think, oh, that's industry. I've got to work with, niching. Just consumer products companies in the United States. That's my thing. Or I just want to niche in breweries. I have 2 coaching students that niche in breweries, and they want to go there, because a lot of people think that they're just niching that. But if you're niching at websites at a certain price point, you're already niched. You're niched in there. Can you niche tighter? Yeah, you can. You can choose another adjective to niche on top of that. Now, the rule on niching is the tighter you niche, the easier it is to market. If you told me I work for breweries in Chicago and I do social media marketing for them, well, that's super niche. Breweries, Chicago, social media marketing. I niched in 3 categories. And maybe let's throw in another category of $4,000 a month engagements. They have to be willing to spend $4,000 a month. Now I've got 4 categories that I niched in. Now, if I were working with you, I would say, okay, well, let's count up the amount of breweries in Chicago and how many potential clients are there, and how many of those can we actually land in our $4,000 a month engagement. And we may have niched too tight to find that there are 30 breweries in Chicago area, or 50, and you can probably land 10% of them over if you work hard for a year, and that's going to give you 5 clients. Is that enough for you? Did you niche too tight? But if it is, then you have easy marketing, because I've got 50 target clients. I know exactly, I'm going to go to the brewery convention in downtown Chicago. I'm going to go and visit each one of them face to face. I'm going to create my whole landing page that says we are Chicago's brewery social media agency. And you can super hyper market just to that target audience, which positions you as the expert. So marketing becomes easier, but your potential client base becomes smaller. So niching is all about finding the balance between how tight do I go versus how many clients I can land at the price point I'm trying to sell my services. Now, there's a lot to consider in just that conversation, and it takes time to figure it out, and you don't need to rush to it. My recommendation is that when you think that you may have landed on one of the niches, create a landing page on your website that says evan.com/breweries. That's your website, evan.com/breweries. Now you use that landing page to market to all the breweries that you want to market to for your social media services. And then you have another landing page that is evan.com/fishing poles, because you always love fishing and you want to build fishing pole websites. So now you're going to market that landing page to potential fishing pole companies that you can land. And then you have 2 separate destinations that you're trying to market to these different clients to try and find which one is going to actually work. Don't change your homepage with your niche until you've experimented with niches, using some landing pages and targeted marketing. And over time, you're going to find a niche that works for you. Most creatives, a niche finds them over time. One of my friends, Colleen, was on this chat. I don't know if she's on here anymore, but she does editorial layout for books for authors and stuff. Super talented designer. I saw her popping into the chat while I was talking, and her business is niched to people trying to publish a book, and she works with publishers too that have independent authors that need their book laid out and stuff. So she has contracts like that, but it's pretty niche. It's pretty niche work. And it makes it easy for her to say, okay, well, how do I find new clients? Well, I got to go make new relationships with other small publishers that are going to need somebody like me to do book layout and design for them. Now she can go out and target those people. And over time, these niches can find you. For me, here was my niche, and this may be fun for some people, but I figured it out in 2007. So I had been in business for 5 years. I figured out that we were the #1 third bid option for the entertainment industry. Whenever FX Networks digital team needed to have a new project and they needed 3 bids, we were bid #3, and of all the bid #3s, we were the #1 choice. And so when they didn't have the money to work with a mega brand, a mega agency out of New York, because their budget for this engagement was too small, well, Riser was the #1 third bid choice. And I built a multi-million-dollar agency being the number one third bid choice. And I loved it. I loved it. We did some awesome projects, and we did huge projects too. They were $100,000, $500,000 projects that we would get from some of these clients. And, but our competitors would have charged $1 million for that same thing because we had a lower cost structure. We could come in a budget that was more palatable for some of these tighter, smaller engagement things that they had.
Did you communicate that? Because the way you're talking about it is very like, it's light, you know,
Yeah.
it's like it's tongue in cheek and it's humorous. I just wonder.
I did. So I communicated it differently. I didn't communicate it that way with my my clients. I didn't say, hey, we're your number one third bid, pick us. No, I would say, hey, you know what the benefits of working with my agency are? Number one, I worked at Fox. I know what it's like inside the walls of Warner Brothers. We've done other projects with Warner Brothers. And so we have Warner Brothers clients. I know I was a creative director at Fox, so I understand the dynamics of you outsourcing to agencies because I did that when I was in your shoes. So I understand that. So we provide a lot of value there at our agency. Now, because I'm based in Salt Lake City and not down the street from you in Los Angeles, I'm able to run my business in a more cost-effective manner than a lot of the people that we compete against. And that allows us to pass on some of those cost savings. I'm not saying it's free or even cheap by industry standards, but it's more cost effective than what a lot of our competitors are going to charge you because they have a much higher cost to do business. And we like to work on these projects. So I understand it. We can do the same quality, but we can do it in a more cost effective manner than what our competitors. The other thing too that you get with our agency is because we're smaller. We were, from the most of the run of my agency, we were 10 to 15 people. When I sold, we were 18 people. So we were a little bit more of a boutique agency, and you're going to have direct access to our team. You're going to be on calls with the designer working on your design. You're not going to be going through gatekeepers. And when you work with some of these big mega agencies, you're going to be funneled through gatekeepers, a project manager who's going to inhibit your ability to express your changes directly to the designer. So that's another benefit that we can give. So anyway, that was kind of my positioning pitch to a lot of those mega brands that we did work with. And it was effective. And we just had continual stream of referrals and new projects to our agency.
That's great. Wow, thank you. I really appreciate it. And I'm shout out to my team who's also, I noticed they kept popping in.
Hey,
Justin
awesome.
And Noah. So awesome. Thank you again.
Shout out to the Evan team out there.
Slake marketing in the house. Thanks.
All right. See ya. All right, Madeline, we have anybody else, or should I answer a question off of the thing? Okay, let's take like one or two more questions, and then we got upvoted. Claudia Young, how do you convert scope into estimated work hours? Is there a guiding formula? The same way, I have a pricing workshop. If you see an ad, I do a pricing workshop every week, and I talk about this. But the best way to do that is to take your rounds and tasks and calculate the number of hours that you're going to use for each of those. If somebody says, hey, how much to design a website? And you say, oh, well, it'll take me I'll spend about a week on that. And then that's what you think until you go in and you say, wait a second, I've got to do research. And just the competitor and target audience research, I'm going to spend a half a day. I'm already 4 hours into it. I've got to have a research meeting with the client where I present the research that I found. I'm going to spend an hour in that meeting. Now I'm at 5 hours. And then I'm going to go and I'm going to create the sitemap, and I'm going to spend 3 hours on that. And I'm going to create the content framework, and I'm going to put 2 hours on that. And then I'm going to present those to the client for another hour-long meeting. Man, you're already at 10 hours and you haven't even started designing anything. So for a lot of creatives, when you start breaking down these rounds that you're going to deliver and the meetings that you're going to have with the client, you start realizing that the number of work hours in your project are probably much higher than what you currently are charging your client, because the scope, you didn't consider the entire scope of execution. So breaking down phases, milestones, and rounds can help you get to a more accurate price. Just attach hours to each of those things to help you understand that price point. Now, I'm not a fan of pricing based on how long it's going to take you. I price on a few different variables: market value, client budget, and your production cost. Those are the variables that I price based on. And I've got a lot of content on that. And there's content in my courses about how to price websites. So anyway, that's the quick question. Madeline, we had somebody drop into the green room, but now they're gone. Are they coming back or no? No, not coming back. Okay, let's take another question from Ammo Design. Is there a specific all-in-one freelancer application you recommend or prefer? Hello, Bonsai. All-in-one freelancer application like Freelance Destination, like a freelancer marketplace like Upwork and Fiverr, etc., freelancer.com. If that's the question, as I understand it here, I don't have a recommendation. Those freelancer platforms can be great if you don't have other ways to get clients. If you do have other ways to get clients, typically you have more money that can be made outside of those platforms than inside of those platforms. But there are people who are just crushing it on those freelancer platforms. And I've had good experience hiring people from those platforms. It changed everything in my mindset of those platforms. The Fiverr of the world, I used to think Fiverr, oh my gosh, that's such a bad brand because it's automatically saying, hey, get stuff for $5. So I had a bad taste in my mouth from that. And then I experimented with hiring a few people from Fiverr to do some YouTube social media marketing and things not YouTube social media marketing, YouTube SEO for my YouTube channel and stuff. And I was super impressed with the people that I found, the talent that they had. And I was surprised as well. I didn't price shop. I still relationship shop on those freelancer platforms. And I sent a message to the people who I was considering and said, here's what I'm thinking to have done. Are you a good fit for me? And a lot of my judgment on whether I tried them or not came from their response to me, of them saying, hey, Mike, great to meet you. Yeah, that's exactly what I do. I'd love to help you out. If I got something friendly like that, I was way more apt to try them out than somebody who didn't reply at all. I didn't hire them. So keep in mind that relationships are still king, even inside those freelancer platforms. You still have to build those positive interactions with your clients. Okay, Chelsea, what are some takeaway learning experiences in which projects have turned out to be less profitable than expected? Man, I've had so many. The takeaway learning experience is, I just gave you 2 hours worth of that. It's break these things down systematically, get all of those phases and rounds into your contract, have those clauses that I gave you that anything not in the contract is considered out of scope, so that there can't be any assumptions that something's included and something is not included. You have to have it detailed in there, and everything not detailed is considered out of scope. That's a big one that's going to save you from some of the financial pain that I had from some of the projects, as I learned this the hard way. Okay, Yaya Lorenz. How do you feel about creating simple templated sites versus highly interactive experiences? Basically, do you make more money with quality or quantity? The most money I made in my agency came from the biggest budgets projects. So I'm not a fan of cranking out lots and lots of small projects. And it's a chaotic business that is a grind for a lot of people that try and do it. I would rather see you doing 10 $50,000 websites per year for $500,000 of revenue than $1,050 projects per year. No, $1,500 projects per year for the same amount of revenue. So what I found is, sell your client on a bigger engagement. Sell them on the phases that you're going to do. Sell them on you solving the problems that they have through the website you're building, and up level your pricing as a result of that. And that's a better business, as I've found, for websites. Okay. We have someone in the green room ready to come in. Not yet ready. So Madeline's working on that. Okay, Rachel, how many versions of UX UI do you do? Oh, sorry, it just moved here. Okay. How many versions of UX UI do you do? One set of wireframes, a few wireframe options, a few design options. Okay, usually for me, the wireframes, it's one option, usually. You may do a couple options of a home page, but typically the wireframe process is all about just, let's get the content out of written content framework and into a blueprint that we can work from. It's because it's not so design centric. It's more about content representation and hierarchy. I've found that you usually don't need multiple different versions. Now, the UI design, the visual design, we would usually do 3 different homepage visual designs. And then when you get to the sub pages, you usually don't need multiple different versions. You can land the design on the home page and then iterate that into the sub pages if you have approved wireframes. So that's kind of the process that we would use. But whatever you choose to do, make sure you dictate it into your contract. Michelle, do you have a no refunds clause in your project? How do you work it out? Yeah, I assume you're asking about my course, and yes, no, there's no refund. There's a 30-day money back guarantee. I should have said that, but 30 days, check it out. If you're not happy, send me an email. My email's available on the bottom of my site, and I can click the refund transaction button. The amount of people that have asked for refunds from my sites or from my courses is minuscule. I mean, like 12 or 13 people out of 2,900 something students that I have. So my goal is massive over delivery. You to get an ROI on my courses is really super simple for the price point that I enroll people at. Okay, Madeline, we have somebody ready. Come on, Santiago is going to join us. Awesome. Hey,
Hi,
Santiago, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Michael.
Good.
First, I want to say hi from Colombia, and thank you so much
Hey,
for...
qué bien, bacano, yo hablo español. Y
Sí,
viví en
bueno,
Colombia, en Cartagena y
excelente.
Barranquilla.
Es lo mejor, Colombia es lo mejor.
Yeah, Colombia es lo mejor. All
Yeah.
right.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for this space. Really, really great information. And I'm a software developer, not so much experience. I'm kind of graduated just a couple months ago, but I've been working like for 2 years. And my question is, if you think no-code platforms are going to replace actual code development, because as a software developer, I kind of have like some fears and doubts if I should actually start learning these no-code platforms. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear
Hi.
you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And should I stick to normal development? Should I switch to these no-code platforms? And do you think there are features that no-code platforms are not going to be able to actually handle, or maybe in the future these services will be able to just do absolutely everything? And yeah, that's my question.
Yeah, that's a great question, and it's a natural fear. Here are a couple of thoughts. Thought number one is the demand for software developers has never been higher than it is right now, and it will continue to grow into the future. The world is going more and more digital as we go. So I don't think you should have any concerns about your future as a software developer. As long as you evolve with the times, as long as when we stop viewing websites through Chrome, browser and we start viewing websites through some kind of 3D meta environment, you've evolved that you can code and create those kinds of environments. So I think you always have to stay on the forefront. And but in the short run, we're not there. You know, you've got a decade run of things being largely the same as they are, with new platforms and new options and new environments coming into the mix. So I don't think you should be too worried about that. The next thing is, yes, no code platforms are going to replace some of what developers do. I've had this happen multiple times over the course of my creative career. Let's take when Wix and Squarespace started to emerge. And at the same time that they were emerging as a simple solution to create a brochure website, Facebook was also emerging and getting its first billion users and created the ability for businesses to create a Facebook page. That combination of those three things made a decrease in the amount of brochure websites that we made. When I say brochure websites, I mean like these little 3 to 5 page websites that every business on the planet needs to have. Now there were options for those businesses to get digital information out there without hiring an agency to build their little brochure site. And we saw a dramatic decline. This was about in 2009, 10. We saw a dramatic decline in the amount of brochure websites that we used to do for $10,000, $12,000. And now they were poofing away. The thing that replaced them was also we started to see an increase in enterprise level websites, because you can't build at least back then especially, you can't build some robust, super interactive, database driven, gamified website inside of one of these simpler development environments. And we started doing bigger engagements for our clients. We started getting average $50,000, $100,000 website project sizes for more custom requests that these smaller things couldn't do. So yes, these no-code style platforms are going to replace some of what developers do right now. But if you're a smart developer, you're going to be forward-looking and you're going to grow with new technologies and demand that comes out of the ever-changing tech world that we see.
Okay.
So that's my answer. And your future is bright, man. Anybody who is a software developer right now, future is bright. Lots of demand out there. Okay. You had a follow-up question?
Yeah, can I
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, well, as a follow-up question, I'm really into diving into what these new technology trends are going to be, at least what I think, regarding Web3, the metaverse kind of stuff, virtual stuff, and actually immersive virtual experiences within the browser, taking advantage of new technologies such as 3GS, WebGL, and this kind of 3D interactive stuff. I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, because I really like, and that's what I wanna
There's no question that's a smart play. I mean, Web3 is all the news. Facebook changed the name of their company to Meta to go and build the metaverse. And if a multi-billion-dollar company believes in the future that much to change the entire positioning of their $500 million company or $500 billion valued company, I'd say that you, Santiago, are pretty safe making a focus on that same thing. Yeah. No, I have no worries. You're following the trends, and that's safe for you. And you have to do it. And this won't be the only one. You're young enough that 15 years from now, you're going to see some new thing that starts to get talked about, and you're going to have to pivot to that. Just keep doing what you're doing. These are smart questions and smart strategy from you.
Okay, thanks, man.
Okay.
Thanks so much for everything.
Okay, hasta luego.
Ciao.
Ciao. All right, should we take like one or two more, Madeline? What's our timeline like? One or two more? One more? One more. Here we go. One more. Brielle Wilson. Do you perform an analytics audit before each project so you have a baseline to measure success against after completing the project? Super great idea. Yes, you should. Yes, you should. You want to measure results and you want to follow up with your clients over time as well. I mean, it's just a lot of the growth of your career, your creative business, is going to come from you positioning yourself as an expert in the eyes of your client. And if you say, hey, client, this is in your discovery meeting. Hey, client, we'd love to get some insights as to your current analytics because we're all about generating results for you. And we want to see what happens when we go through this redesign, and we're going to track it for 3 months, 6 months, and see how it changes the traffic of your site. When you say that, the client will say, oh, that's great. Yeah, we can get you access to our Google Analytics. And then a month after you chat with your client or you launch your project, a month after you launch your project, you follow up with the client and say, hey, client, I was just looking in the Google Analytics and I saw that we had a 73% increase in time on site since we launched. Just wanted to let you know that. Now the client's like, wow, that's great. It took you 5 minutes to go and see the traffic difference and do that calculation. But in the eyes of your client, it positions you so well for bigger involvement in their business. And then you do the same thing 3 months later, and you do the same thing 6 months after that. And you keep this as just this little cadence of touch points with the client where you tell them, hey, you know, we're seeing your traffic kind of flatline. You know what? We'd love to do a conversion optimization engagement with you. Redesign the homepage, adjust some things so that hopefully we can get that time on site back up to where it was 2 months ago. And it gives you the opportunity to upsell recurring services to your clients. Okay, so that's just a little thought on analytics and how do we use that to report, build relationships, and upsell our clients. Okay, I think that's the end of our questions. Madeline, anything else? Madeline's applauding, so she's the only one I can see. Thank you for the applause, Madeline. Hopefully everybody else got something good out of this. I appreciate everybody sticking around. Thank you so much. And I'll look forward to seeing the recording get posted somewhere on this as well. And as a reminder, I am going to go in and change the download package from that same exact link. So if you try it within an hour, you'll be able to get the presentation PDF from that same link. And if you don't get that, then shoot me a little email or a DM on Instagram, and I'll make sure that I get it to you. Okay, thanks a lot. We'll see you, everybody.
I wanted to just come on stage and say a massive, massive thank you to Mike for being so generous with his time and his knowledge. That was pure gold, and I was so excited to listen to it and had so many valuable tips and tricks in there for creating a really effective workflow for client sites. So massive thank you to Mike, massive thank you to EditorX as well. I know EditorX is going to be sending you guys an email with the recording next week. So a lot of you have been asking about the recording. It will come to your email boxes next week. And a reminder that these slides will be in the downloadable resources in about an hour or so. So you could re-download those PDF slides. Thank you to you guys, everyone who came, who gave up your 2.5 hours to learn these really helpful tips and tricks. So hope to see you at a future Dribbble workshop. See you soon.